promote and complement. To promote and compliment each one of us for our contributions to individuals, families, and communities. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, we have continued to offer our professional support, protect, and advocate for those most vulnerable in our communities. We are celebrating the amazing work that we as social workers do every day. We are saying a big thank you to social workers from our colleagues, fellows, and program participants, to all social workers up and down the country and across the world. Globally, the past year has possibly been the toughest year yet for social workers with the pandemic. And yet, social workers continue to work alongside those in need of care, support, and protection. And this definitely warrants a celebration. Despite all the challenges, I'm sure that each one of us will always be proud to be part of this great profession. I once again welcome you all. Now I would like to call upon our resource coordinator, Mr. Roxy Becker, to talk us through the general guidance for today's program.
Thank you, Binu. Just would like to remind everyone, I hope everyone will be quite familiar with Zoom. We've been using Zoom and Teams for the last almost like a couple of years now. I just wanted to say, please turn the video on if you can, so we can see everyone's beautiful faces. So please don't hesitate to put your full name, because sometimes people may be using the phone, so their names won't be showing. It could be showing like an iPhone or Samsung or Galaxy. So just feel free to use your name on the screen. If you don't know, just send me a PM, or just let one of us know, so we can help you to change your name. And please mute your mic unless you're speaking. And the last one is we'll be recording this. I think you heard a pop-up voice. We'll be recording, and we might put this on our website or social media. So just wanted to let everyone know that. So thank you very much. Over to you, Binu.
Thank you, Roxy. As we start our celebration, could I request our chairperson, Mr. Sibi Thomas, to inaugurate our World Social Work Day celebration with the welcome speech.
Thank you, Binu. Everybody can hear me? Hello, friends. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Good morning. On behalf of UK MSW Forum, I wish all a warm welcome. First of all, I would like to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Mark Harvey, Chief Social Worker for Adult England. I know, Mark, you got a wealth of knowledge in mental health, learning disability. On behalf of Social Work MSW Forum, I'm happy to welcome you. I also would like to welcome Victoria Hart. Like Mark, Victoria, you are the Regional Engagement Lead, Social Work England. You also got wealth of expertise in mental health, best interest assessor, and care quality commission expert. Victoria, we would like to welcome you on this beautiful occasion. Gandhi Dosh, President of Network of Social Work Forum India, an academic expert and an expert lecturer in different universities. Gandhi, I would like to welcome on behalf of UK Social Work MSW Forum. Finally, I would like to welcome social workers, staff, and students from different parts of India. Also, finally, I would like to welcome our beloved forum members. World Social Work Day celebration is an opportunity to pause, reflect the fantastic work we do to improve the well-being of the most vulnerable people in the society. We do it all day, every day. When we work from our heart, we make a positive change in people's life. Today, we join together to think about our good work. We communicate our good work with colleagues around the world. Also celebrate social work. It is a day of inspiration, of learning, and an opportunity to celebrate our values. Every year, there is an important reason why we do this. This year, the theme is co-building a new eco-social world. leaving no one behind. We, of course, are still living through part of the pandemic and that affecting population and colleagues around the world. We also in Europe in living in a war, and our thoughts are particularly with the people of Ukraine and with all affected both in wider Europe and in the UK. Again, I want to tell you that this is also an opportunity to think why our values are so important for peace and social cohesion globally. We need a culture of cooperation, not competition. Together, we can achieve a great goal that what we could achieve alone. On this time, I would like to reflect from my personal life. I came from India. When I think about the blessing in this country, I would like to read a statistics in front of you. If you earn even the minimum wage in the UK, you are among us the richest 4% of the people in the world. And if you earn the average salary of a registered nurse in the UK, you are comfortably among the wealthiest 1% on the planet. For those who make up the poorest 10% of the people of Earth, need to work for 11 days to earn as much as that registered nurse in the UK earns in just 1 hour. So I ask all social workers, work together for dialogue for defend the poor, protect the nature, and build a vibrant social care and healthcare system so that we can make sure all people's well-being are met. Finally, I would like to say one more thing. We here do our social work with a practicality also. We give more importance, though we all know that we are working with the policies, procedure, and all these things, but we give lots of importance to charity. We all know that our foundation is based in charity. This year, we are helping a poor girl. She lost her kidney. We contribute a handsome amount to support her. Last year, our previous executive members also did that. Okay, thank you very much. Once again, I welcome everybody on this beautiful day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sibi, for the kind words and for the informative speech. Could I now request Mr. Thomas Joseph, our PRO, to kindly introduce our chief guest, Mr. Mark Harvey.
Thank you, Binu. And I have the pleasure of introducing Mark Harvey. Mark has over 25 years of experience in the sector. Throughout his career, he has worked in the local authorities and NHS Trust, predominantly in mental health and learning disability services. For many years, he has been an approved social worker. Over the past few years, he has been the principal social worker for Hertfordshire and co-chair of the National Principal Social Workers Network. Mark Harvey is the interim Joint Chief Social Worker for Adults at the Department of Health and Social Care. Mark also works as Operations Director for Adult Disability and Mental Health Services with Hertfordshire County Council. There's a lot more to say about Mark, but with the short time we have, I welcome Mark to do his address.
Thomas and colleagues, thank you so much for the warm welcome. That's lovely, and it's interesting to hear back, isn't it, what you've done in your life when other people tell you. It's kind of reminds us how social work is part of us as people and not just our jobs. It's kind of core to who we do. Can I just check that the sound's okay?
Mark, 1 second, I'm going to mute everyone.
Hello.
You can remute yourself, yeah?
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Shall I try again?
Yeah,
Someone
please.
give me a thumbs up just to make sure that yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Thank you. Right. So I bought a few slides to talk through with you on this important day, and it's been an absolute honour for you to invite me. So I thank you so much for doing that. It has been a very interesting and difficult year for everyone over the last 2 years, and obviously whilst I was the joint chief social worker with Fran Ledgerer, and we now have Lynn Romeo, who's back at the Department of Health to take up the mantle of the chief social worker for adults going forward. It's been a year that's shaped social work quite considerably, and I think the celebrations of World Social Work Day this year are really important for us, and they allow us to reflect on the future. But that particular element around leaving no one behind, I think is really key, because I think that's something that social work does very well. But also it's in our hands to make sure that we do it better alongside the rest of the citizens in society and make sure that it is part of the journey that we have on a day-to-day basis. Everyone does seem to be very frozen, so can I just check that you are able to hear me okay? I don't know, Thomas, whether you could just jump on and say it, so that sounds good.
Yeah, is everything?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Fantastic, brilliant, thank you. I'm going to bring up a few slides, if that's okay. There is some video embedded in slides that may not work with the connections, but let's see how we go. Right. Okay. So I'm hoping you can see those okay. And I just really wanted firstly to start by just reflecting on adult social work, because that's obviously my area, and I know there will be colleagues have a adult social work. And actually what's really important, I think the opening people there kind of really picked at the heart of it, but I just really wanted to our attention to that very first line of the Care Act, which says the core purpose of adult social care and support people to achieve the outcomes matter to them in their life. And I think that's such an important point, and that statutory guidance for social work in England for adults tells us. It doesn't tell us our job is to buy care for people or to set their plans. It tells us that we do social work with people, next to them, in their communities, in their homes, to make things better in the life that they choose that they want to live. And I think that's really important. And what we do is that we do that through our human rights-based approach, our ability to develop and sustain and maintain relationships to enable us to have good relationship-based practice, and our ability to work with communities. That social work is an all-encompassing role that understands the individuals, the heart of the community, and the impact that life has on everybody as we work with them on a day-to-day basis. And I think as a role, social work is really unique in that wide holistic approach. And I think this year's No One Leaving Behind principles really bring that to the fore. And I just really wanted that last quote. I love this quote from Lady Howard, just to remind society of our role as social workers' roles in society, is that the purpose of any human right protection is to protect the rights of the many whom the majority are unwilling to protect. Democracy values everyone equally, even if the majority do not. And I think you could say that very clearly about social work, because I think one of the really beautiful and important things about social work is that we work with everyone. We ensure that everyone's rights are met, no matter what society thinks of them, no matter how the papers, the media portray people. We will be there and we will do what we do as social workers for every individual in our society and all the citizens that we come across. And I think that's part of why social work is not up there in that kind of hero status that we see in the media, etc., nor should it be. It's because we will work with people that society deems not worthy of being worked with, if I'm really honest, that the headlines in newspapers, etc. And that's what we bring. We bring a complete equality, a kind of total love, and an evidence base to what we do for everyone that lives in our towns and our villages and cities across the country. So I also just wanted to reflect a little bit. I think social work right now is at a really pivotal moment in adult social care. And actually it's really important that we make sure that everything our government does, that everything we do as a profession is done for the right reasons and really captures the very heart and essence of what it is to be a social worker and social care, which I will read out to you. I know you can see it, but I just want to read out to you. Well, I'll tell you where it's from afterwards, and maybe some people know, but we recommend a new local authority department providing a community-based and family-oriented service which will be available to all. This new department will, we believe, reach far beyond the discovery and rescue of social casualties. It will enable the greatest possible number of individuals to act reciprocally, giving and receiving service for the well-being of our communities. Now, that's a line from something called the Seabourn Report, which I know many of you will be familiar with, which was actually written in 1969 and was the white paper that created social service departments in this country, which came into force in 71. So we've had a big birthday halfway through the pandemic as social workers and social care. But everything in that statement, I think, is true today and true now, and something that's really important for us to do as professionals and embrace. And I think the concept of people left behind is very, very important, because I do wonder sometimes whether we've actually met this ambition from Lord Seabourn back in 1999 and to truly embrace communities and the people we work with, not the people's diagnostics, not what's wrong with them, not what society feels are their deficits, but actually just as equal people that we live as our neighbours across the country. Right, I am going to try and play you a little video in a minute, but see if that works. But just before I go on to that, just further embracing the idea of people being left out of our society, I wonder whether anyone, you might want to put it in the chat or just come on mic and say, can anyone still tell me what the link is between all of these names, or what does this tell people? What do people want to say after reading some of these? If we've got anyone with a thought. I'm afraid I can't actually see the chat while I'm showing the presentation, so some people might need to shout out. No. Okay. Well, I'll talk you through them. So these are all situations, historic, where people, where we have uncovered, yes, absolutely, thank you, Thomas, some of the major inquiries. So these are all areas we have seen abuse taking place on people with learning disabilities, mental health problems, or physical healthcare needs. I'm not just talking abuse or neglect, I'm talking significant targeted abuse of people in our society by virtue and nature of their disability, by virtue and nature of they live in institutional settings, in large hospitals, out of sight of our societies. One of the things that I think when the International Federation came up with the idea about no one being left behind from now, part of my challenge, and I think we need to challenge ourselves as social workers, is that people have been left behind long ago and are still fairly discriminated within our societies. And particularly for me, with my background, people with learning disabilities, which is where I'm going to focus part of the next bit. Most of these are learning disability units where people were found to be being abused, not allowed their human rights, and actually removal of their dignity and their humanity on a day-to-day basis. And one thing that always strikes me is that there would have been a social worker involved in nearly everyone in these places. And actually, how do we reflect on what we can do to make this not a reality going forward? Just hopefully move on to a video. Right, hopefully this video will play. Given the connections for some people, it may not, but this is a video of a poem that a couple of young adults, one who's autistic and one with a learning disability, wanted to read out, which we recorded, which talks about what they see as a true life for them from their perspective.
I don't want you to see me.
Because if you see me, I'm not part of your community.
I don't want to be a shadow in a residential home.
Because I want to be another free.
I don't want many things.
But I want to be able to have everything.
I don't want people to have special clubs for me.
Because in that club, I'm not in the club you're in.
I don't want to be a special name, word or group.
Because I want to be a boy, a man and a bloke.
There are many things I want to be, but you don't know any of them. I don't want to pack dogs in a day centre. I bloody well want to own one and take one for walks.
I don't want your fears to define me. I want my choices and actions to scare the crap out of you as you run for the risk assessment. I want to be a pain in the arse.
I want to be a nice bloke.
I want to do voluntary work.
God, I suppose so.
But what I want to do is have a drink, have kids, have a fight.
Walkers, girls.
Or a boy.
I'll decide.
But I want to do all of that and more.
Tonight.
Tomorrow. Whenever. I don't want you to see me, because at the point you don't see me, I might actually be part of your community.
I don't want to be a part of your community because I want you to be part of our community. I have no idea what our community is.
But what I do know is that I would let you do whatever you want within it.
So there we have Paul and Max, and what I love about this poem that Paul and Max pulled together for us is this idea that actually to be part of, but sometimes social care systems and health systems can really complicate that. And there's some really key lines in there. There's a line in there which I think Paul says, I don't want to go to a day centre to pat a dog, I want to own one and take it for a walk. And it's such a simple concept that sometimes in social and healthcare systems, we create false lives for people in the perception that we're creating normality or a human right or the ability to live as part of our society. And as social workers, I think we understand that. We understand that for people to be engaged in part of what we do, we understand that Paul would quite like to own and take a dog for a walk. It's healthier for him, there's companionship, rather than just sending him to a day centre where he can look at a dog once a week. And I find some of the words in this quite interesting and quite moving, actually, and a good lesson for us as social workers as to how we assess people, how we support plans with them, and how we enable them to go back to that kind of care act, which is enabling people to live the life that they want to live. One of the things that I think restricts that and kind of causes this concept of people being left behind, the approach to risk and risk management, again, between health care systems. This is a poster I put up in an office, just to ask that question about, do we manage risk? Because management in a way that is paternalistic, controlling, and keeps safety can make people's lives very protected, not free. It's about whether the responsibility is to enable people to take them, or whether it's about the feeling better because it makes people safer. And I think that's a real challenge we have as social workers. And I think our view of the quality of life is really, really important. Quality of life means doing things. We all do things every single day which are risky, and how we enable people to support, we are social workers for, to enable the risk and mitigate the risk, but without removing life, is a really important thing to do. And again, I think for our World Social Work Day, we need to consider, if we aren't going to leave people behind, we have to afford them every single right that's the same as ours, but how we bring our skills. So the concept of human rights is a really interesting one for people learn, and people that are kind of protected within our society, deemed as needing our control a lot of the time by the state. And there's a fantastic quote here from Professor Claire Defan, who I went to see at a talk, and she was talking about the sexual rights of people with learning disabilities to have relationships and have sexual relationships. Quite a lot of social workers and health professionals talking about we need to protect people, we need to make sure they're safe. And this simple line that she uses every time, which has always struck me, is that people don't need protecting from their human rights. Our human rights are our human rights, and there isn't a remit for social care or social work or health services or any other state element to remove a human right because we think it's safer for a person. Our human rights are our default position, and that is what social work is based on, and something that all of you will be doing on a day-to-day basis for the positive benefit of individuals. So just before I go on to the next slide, I just really wanted to kind of reflect on that, because I think what is so wonderful about social work is that we do this. We do embrace that we are there to work alongside people, not to do unto them. We bring a holistic level of thinking, a very detailed level of thinking. We are generally willing to accept risk and embrace it and work alongside individuals to enable them to live their lives. we're able to have that conversation with others who may have singular sanctity of life, protection of life type approaches. We bring something much more creative to that. And I think Social Work Day is that day of the year, and hopefully you will do this today, is to absolutely, your roles are fairly unique. And they are very individual across all services that we do, is that you really do enable a different enable people to live their lives, enable people to institutions, they're not in buildings, they're not locked up environments, the perception of safety from society for us. I also just really want to take an opportunity today just to do a little bit of promotion for the Chief Social Worker's Office and a big piece of work that we've been doing over the last couple of years, which is the Social Care Workforce Race Equality Standard. Now, for those of you who might have worked in the NHS or be doing within the NHS, you will be aware of the NHS that when I was Chief Social Worker with Fran, that we were really keen on is to actually look at the heart of social work and why we are not seeing the level of progression of non-white social workers into senior management, into directors' roles, into chief social worker roles that we do in other parts of society. We know that social work now is one of the most diverse professions in our society. In fact, actually research last year from UCAS showed that for undergraduate programs, social work is now the most diverse undergraduate program in this country, which is amazing and fantastic, and actually just goes to show what social work is about. It embraces it at its heart. But what we do not see in local authorities is the progression of those social workers into the leaders of social work and social care going forward. And we need to take a really long, hard look as a leadership system, as ADAS, as chief social workers, as directors, as to why that is. And so one of the things that we promoted and have just launched in the Chief Social Worker's Office is a race equality standard. So for those that aren't familiar with the NHS one, it looks at these metrics, and we've started with 20 local authorities where we've rolled it out as a pilot programme, Hertfordshire being one. Some of you may be working in authorities where it has been rolled out as a pilot programme. And it is an annual collection of evidence of progression, equality, learning development, opportunity for staff across social care departments for adults and for children's. And it's really important that we could start with those first local authorities in order to make this the norm across the country. I'm really pleased to say that Department of Health has agreed now that this will be a standard piece of work which will be rolled out across local authorities in their entirety across England. And it will allow us firstly to understand what the picture is of diversity in leadership, the progression opportunities of all of our social workers, and ensuring, oh, sorry, cat's knocked the laptop over, and ensuring that people have the same opportunity and that we will have a much more diverse leadership across the country. We've never had a non-white president of ADAS. There are very, very few non-white social workers in leadership and director positions across the country in adult social care. And we need to do a lot of work to make sure that that changes. And not only that changes, that leadership reflects the social work workforce and the communities that we have across this country. So this standard is being rolled out. Keep an eye out in the Chief Social Workers Office. There will be some reports published quite soon. There is a website there already which takes you through to lots of study and case studies that are taking place in the pilot sites, and some initial evidence from those pilot sites. It'll be really interesting after, when we get to a bit more of a conversation, whether any of you are working in any of those sites and your perception of how it's being rolled out and what we can do to do it better. One of the key initiatives of the Chief Social Worker. I just really wanted to end with a couple of slides on, so what is important about social work? What does social work do for us in society, and why do we have it? And a couple of quotes here from, it's a bit of a sales pitch, but a book myself and some colleagues wrote called Social Work on the Left. But I just really wanted to, first of all, for doing what you do on a day-to-day important. And it's so important that you shout loudly about what you do and you share the profession and your expertise and what you bring to that. Because social work is more important right now, I suspect, than it has ever been. And it's really important that we make sure that we do it properly. For adult social care, there's huge reform going on and being proposed over the coming years. And we need to make sure that social work is at the heart of leading that reform to make sure that it's done properly. In children's services, There's lots of reviews taking place right now, and the reality of what social work brings to that, it's got to be social work intervention delivery. But what we do as social work, bring that idea of emotional literacy to everything that we do, all our practice. Default position for complex emotional situation is not to dictate care. What we do is we ensure people retain their freedom, that their choice, personal aspirations are protected, and we enable them to try and live their lives in that way, rather than going straight for the control and the safety mechanisms that we see in other parts of the system. As social workers, you have to be, you'll know this every single day, legally, you have to know a good element of law that we use on a day-to-day basis as social workers, whether it be the Mental Capacity Act, whether it's Mental Health Act, whether it's the Care Act. These are all things that are written to enable people to live their lives in a positive way, and it's important that we use them and we use them properly. The Mental Capacity Act is a fantastic piece of legislation which is there to enable people to live their lives and make choices, not for systems to take control of them. And I'm always struck, a very good colleague friend of mine, always talks about when he does a Mental Capacity Act assessment, if he says someone lacks capacity, no one ever challenges him. But if he says they have capacity and they're making that decision, everyone doubts it and they challenge. We don't do capacity assessments because people say no to things. We do them when it's the right time to do them and the law sets them out to live their lives as best they can. But what we need to do, and with all these changes, we move into very new worlds, and all the turmoil we have going on, is that we need to keep that tradition as social workers and name what we, quite a lot of the time you're managing other people's anxieties, not just the people we work with, but health colleagues, doctors, GPs, our managers, managing their anxieties so that they don't react in a way that has an adverse impact on the rights of citizens and people. But as social workers, it's really important that we lead practice, that we get at the heart of that, which is why the RES has to be at the leadership of social care systems to drive beyond the ideas of transaction and counting stuff and offering stuff. It's there to make people's lives better in a way that is based on the evidence of our profession and drive that. And we need you as social workers to be at the heart of that. Putting the challenge there, but coming up with the answers as well. Let's critique away, but let's make sure we've got the other options to drive it forward. But most importantly, let's just embrace what being social workers are. We're positive, we're always progressive in our thinking. We have to be creative in what we do every day. But we have a real balance of humanism, understanding of the art of people, understanding of spirituality and what people believe, cultures, our love, and this bit about having a dash of science to add is important to what we do on a day-to-day basis. It is a very unique profession, and I absolutely thank all of you for what you bring to that on a day-to-day basis as well, because I think the diversity of our workforce, whether it's in gender, whether it's in culture, whether it's in age, absolutely brings a broad breadth of knowledge and skill to the way we work with people on a day-to-day basis. So I really hope you have a fantastic day today, celebrating World Social Work. The significant contributions you will all be making towards the lives of everyone across our country, and will continue to do so. Thank you ever so much for inviting me, and I think we've got a bit of a space for any questions that people may want to ask or share, or just your reflections and thoughts, or want to put back to me.
Thank you, Mark. I would like to call upon Mr. Sibley Sebastian, our treasurer, and Mrs. Sheena to facilitate the Q&A session.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you very much, Mr. Mark, for your wonderful sharing, and especially your rich experience working as a social worker. I'm glad to see that you were also an approved social worker, and I started as an approved social worker in the beginning and currently working as an AMP, which is a transform. In fact, yes. I was actually very, your few points you shared, it struck me. There's one in the video, it says that we are trying to make them part of our community. Actually, all of us, when we practice, we are trying to make the patients with their disabilities, we are trying to make them to be part of our community. Very often, we social workers, sometimes we don't reach down to their level and try to understand what they are undergoing and support them, which is something in that video, which I was very striking point to note that. Also, it is good to note that there is a few points you shared. The social work emotional literacy, which is sometimes we are probably lacking in our practice, because very often we fail to understand the patient's views and their needs, and which really important point for us to look into and really develop our own practice skills. And also there is a few points like legal literacy, influence, and lead practice. These are very core points that we should really focus on our own practice. Now, I welcome anybody in our group who would like to ask any questions so that we can ask Mark to, we can clarify. Anybody would like to ask any questions, please welcome.
Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Hello. Mark, I am CB. I am the chairperson of this forum. Mark, you mentioned that non-white social work is not in the senior position. Mark, majority of them are, our members, all of them are, we are non-white, because if this kind of discrimination we noticed, what is the best way you can support us? Can you give me a little more details? So which way you will be able to help us? Because few of our social workers have these issues. How we will be able to tackle this kind of discrimination, Mark? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think it's such a key pivotal moment, I think, in the profession right now, that we make sure that we do start to address this. And so I think there's a couple of bits. I think the social care workforce race equality standard will act as a way of us getting the evidence to share with the leadership of social care and ourselves to be able to start to tackle this. So the authorities that already signed up to the RES will start to have some data. It will be rolled out to all local authorities. And so I think that's the first bit, is if you're an authority where there is a RES, ask your directors, ask your HR officials what the data is telling us. If you're not one that's there yet, ask what they're going to do about getting signed up for a RES. So I think having data and information is a hard, whilst we all know it is a reality, it's much harder for leaders to ignore if we can show the data and share that with them. What I would say, though, on a day-to-day basis, it's for all of us to be able to have this conversation, not just those who are discriminated against in their own progression, moving up in terms of the systems. But I think a challenge to all of our boards of directors in social care, whether you're in an NHS trust, whether you're in a local authority, is to ask them, how are they promoting an anti-racist approach to the inclusion, the development and the aspiration of social workers in their services? And I think that's a conversation that should be opened up in departments, and that we should be asking all our colleagues, regardless of their cultural background, to be putting a challenge into, and being much open to have an open conversation and an uncomfortable conversation about the reality of the experience that some of our social work colleagues face. So I think there is something about pushing forward with that conversation. And if colleagues on this call want to share and push those conversations, I would recommend do that. But I would seek a broader support from across the social work profession, and look at those local authorities how they've started to do some. I'd be quite happy to send through to Thomas, actually, in Hertfordshire, our new diversity and inclusion strategy, which is absolutely looking at this, and in a way that uses an anti-racist and an anti-discriminatory approach, as opposed to just a development opportunity, which I think is what authorities and organisations have done a lot in the past and has failed us on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, Mark, thanks for the beautiful answer. Thank you.
I am Gigi Joseph. I am one of the other member. Can you hear me?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Yeah, just a follow-up question on the workforce race equality issue. I'm a consultant, a social work manager, and and working as an IRO in children's services. And it was very interesting to see those points. The core reason, the forum. I am one of the founder, chair of the forum as well. The reasons we all of us, so the UK MSW forum, one way or another, other form of experienced inequality and racism and performance issues because of the practice, because obviously we were migrated from India, the practice standard was different, and obviously we have been inducted. I came to this country in 2002, when the Victoria Columbia investigation was happening. So there have been lots of changes has happened, so I mean, obviously we have Vicky Hart here as well. So even the GCS, GSCC to the transition, there has been significant changes has happened. And I think, and I also involved in recruiting. Some of the members are here in terms of mentoring and coaching and inducting social workers from, India to support here as well. And what I experienced is the performance issue has been, linked because of, the racism issue. And I don't think that still there is existing. And some local authority, because I work in different local authorities in, different management level. And I always remain in middle management, because our last 10 years, I recognize that to climbing, because of the lack of opportunities in senior management, I had, realized that it is going to be very difficult because of the color and experience, so obviously, so I'm remaining in the middle management. And I think there is more we needed to do to support, in terms of, I don't see visibly, as Mark said, the ethnical minority leaders in management, senior leadership, and in representation point of view, and that has created lots of challenges in terms of, so, and I think, in our society, in our group as well, this is, in a day-to-day, even lots of them are practicing, they haven't got the opportunity to further progress their career as well. And I think there is something we try to be working alongside with universities and supporting with the organization to push this forward. And that's why we want to do more collaborative work with the Social Work England, other forums as well, so that we can, our voice is heard and we can push forward this, and we play our part as well to support our profession.
Thank you very much, Gigi.
Absolutely.
Dear Mark, do you have any answer to explanation you want to give to Gigi?
Well, I suppose that my first thought is to kind of, is to endorse everything he said, but from background where it's not an experience that I've had to endure to a certain extent, because obviously as a white male, I get a level of privilege that is afforded to me by society that not necessarily asked and not necessarily appropriately given. And I think Gigi's points are really valid, that we do need to reflect on that, and we do need to look at how we respond to things. I think the point there around performance and racism, and we look at our ASYEs, we know that non-white ASYEs are much less likely to pass the ASYE program. Now that is not because all the ASYEs that are non-white are failing, it's because of the way our systems are working, that there is still a colonialistic element to what we do. And it's been really positive to see students, actually social work students, embracing some of this challenge. And there's a whole, so I would suggest that, it is about making a noise. The principal social workers, you will all have a principal social worker. I would challenge your principal social workers to say, what are we doing in our organizations to make this conversation a loud and a live conversation, and making sure it's a valid one. It may be an uncomfortable one, but we've all got to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And I think it's probably, it's kind of unacceptable that the one profession that is absolutely based wholly on human rights and equality still has an internal problem within it that needs addressing. So I think what Gigi says, I think is really important. I think we all have a responsibility as social workers across the country to get involved in this debate and see some change being made, and putting some challenge up to myself. I'm a senior leader. That challenge has to come to me, it has to come to my colleagues as well, to take responsibility for it.
Thank you very much, Mark. We have a few more minutes, just in case anybody wants to ask a few more questions. One of the things I also noticed, I'm working here for the last almost since 2004. I was directly recruited from India to one of the local authorities in London. Currently, I'm working as an emergency duty team AMP. There is some, it's my observation. In fact, I didn't go aspire a lot of senior management position, but sometimes we see that there is no clear representation of the ethnicity of the population in the senior management, which is and sometimes the positions are probably directly communicated somebody in place, and you see suddenly some senior managers coming as your boss, and you see that, which is something I've noticed in my workplace,
Yeah, absolutely. There was a report done by the Principal Social Workers Network, gosh, I want to say in 2017, on the diversity of leadership. I think it's Codes Who's Leading the Way, and it's worthwhile to read. I'll send a link to Thomas after to share with you all. But it is a link on research about what the diversity split was of directors, of adult directors of social care services. And I can't remember off the top of my head, I did do the research with them, but it was less than 2% were white British. So 98% were white British, and less than 2% formed a mix of other cultures. And so you're quite right. How we lead social care systems that are not representative of the people we support is something we need to reflect on, because we can't truly understand our communities if we don't have a makeup of social care and leadership and social workers that understand the nature of those communities and live amongst them as well. I think
anybody else got any questions?
I think there's a hand up from
Biju, please go ahead. Yeah, is there somebody else is talking? Martin, okay. Biju, you can, yeah.
Yeah, there's a question. There is a question on the chat. Shibu, do you want to ask this question, or you want somebody to read out for you?
Shibu is not listening. I'll read it down. Hi, Shibu has posted a question. Hi, we have a BWEA, that's black, what is that, ethnic BWEA, like, and minority ethnic association, and I attend their meeting every month, which open range of ways to support us. Is there any way Social Work Association UK can ask setting up such association mandatory in various local authorities? That's a question from Shibu in Lancashire.
Yeah, thank you, Shibu. And I think Lancashire is actually one of the pilot res areas as well, so it's interesting to see that that's happened, because I think the workforce race equality, as it gets rolled out to local authorities, will require, it won't be mandatory, but will require local authorities to set that kind of group up within them. So Hertfordshire, my authority, has a similar setup, and we're part of the res. So I think the rolling out of the res will make that much more likely as we go forward. So, but certainly something local authorities I would advocate, and maybe as colleagues you can ask in your authorities whether there is one and what they can do to facilitate it happening would be a positive way forward.
There is one question from Martin Chagan.
Martin, please.
Thank you. Just to add to the conversation, in terms of the opportunities and treating of Black and ethnic minorities social workers, I will appreciate North Somerset. I'm working in North Somerset, so I need to actually explain what is going on there. I think I appreciate the steps that has been taken by the council and the senior leadership in North Somerset in order to actually establish and understand the views of people from the Black and minority ethnic group. We have a staff forum which has been promoted recently in order to actually share and engage with the senior management as well as equality management side. Also, we have another group which will actually feed to the senior management level in order to actually understand what are the issues, what are the themes, what are the views and observations, etc. So I feel there is a starting point of things actually happening. And in terms of the opportunities, I would say, from my experience, okay, I have had experience in the past, but at the moment, things are getting better in North Somerset, at least I am aware of. And I don't see, working here for the last 11 years, I see a much improved picture than it was in the past. And so that's a situation with the opportunities or challenges. Going back to, thank you, Mark, for the inspiring talk. I just want to share my views in terms of how I feel with some of the areas we practice. I fully appreciate in terms of all the legislations we work with, including Human Rights Act, Mental Health Act, Mental Capacity Act, and the Care Act, etc. But personally, I find it sometimes very hard to actually understand or embrace the situations like, for example, okay, we have the opportunity to work with very many service users who have been misusing maybe drugs, alcohol, etc., and maybe having minor mental health issues. And we have come across a few cases where, okay, some of these people, I mean, who has got some issues in terms of their mental health or LD, etc., get pregnant. It may be controversial, okay? Get pregnant, and the children being taken over by the council or the authority in order to actually look after. So one pregnancy, the child is being taken to look after. Second pregnancy, child is again taken over by the local authority in order to look after. Third pregnancy, again things continue. I just find it very hard to understand where is the balance in terms of promoting these human rights, or whether are we actually managing the risk appropriately, or should we be actually looking for some sort of guidance for local authorities in this regard?
Martin, I mean, I think it's a really good question, and it's a challenge we all face as social workers. And I think so for me, I would say it's even further than that. It's the legislation is there to enable people's rights to be protected. Quite often, so I'll give an example. Quite often I hear social workers when I go and do talks and stuff, there's this bit about unwise decisions. Someone's making an unwise decision, so we can't do anything. I think there is a very, very big difference between applying some of the law and us doing social work. So someone might be making a decision to do something. That doesn't mean we don't do social work still. And for me, I would say in scenarios like you said there, Martin, it's the quality of the social work that takes place in between the circumstances that lead to maybe someone having another child, etc., that you point out, or placing themselves in risk, which is the really important bit. And I think for me as social workers, what we've got to do is make sure we drive much more that actually we do good social work with people all the time. On occasions, we will have to do things like mental capacity act assessments, etc., etc. But people will therefore be making decisions on fantastic interventions and good quality services from us as social workers. So what have we done to ensure people have had access to the right information, the right support, to be able to make the right decisions that they want to? And if they make the wrong decisions, we stick with them. And who's to say what the wrong decision is as well, I suppose, but a decision that society may view as the wrong decision, we still stick with them to enable them to do that. I quite often find this with a number of you, we've talked a little bit about mental health, I quite often find this with Section 136, the amount of people that are placed on Section 136 and taken to hospitals and not detained under the Mental Health Act, etc. 136 again 2 weeks later. And the question for me is, where was the social work in between? Because difficulties of people are generally social. They're poverty, they're not having access to food, or poverty has driven a world of access to drug and alcohol, might be driving some of that, it might be trauma. And I think what we need to do is much better at do the work in between, so that we're not just making decisions at the crisis point, like a pregnancy, let's take the child into care. It's what we can do to ensure good social work in between. So it doesn't perfectly answer your question, Martin. I think the law is there and it's based on the Human Rights Act, and we're there to uphold that. But it doesn't abdicate us of responsibility in between and doing great social work with people on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Be you mindful about our time, please? Yeah.
I think you asked a question. Probably
Yeah,
we can ask that.
if it's not time, I can leave it. It's not important.
I think you can ask that question with you.
Okay, so
okay. The last one.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much for that. Mark, and it's for both of you. I know that Vicky will be presenting a session later on. So it's a kind of comes in the limits of both. So that's why I thought like I'll ask now rather than one of the challenges, one of the reasons why we set up this group is to facilitate a kind of peer support and mentoring support to each other, because which was lacking within our work environment, and most of the people found very difficult to address these issues in terms of induction, in terms of getting into the practice, in terms of development, career development, in terms of progression within the grades and things, So that's the reason why we set up this group. And we are proud to say that we are supporting a lot of people, a lot of newcomers and new social workers who come through kind of things, providing a lot of induction training sections and things like that to get to know the social work field in the UK. So one of the questions to Mark is, being a chief social worker for England and supporting that kind of framework, why can't we set up some kind of induction support groups within the work environment, so that people from ethnic minorities, people from who trained outside like us, who doesn't speak polished English sometimes, like we still struggle with because English is not our first language. So we struggle with some of the terms and conditions or the languages that we use. These are the reasons why we've all been downgraded or discarded from our progressions. So is there anything that we could set up to support in practice-wise? In terms of Social Work England, is there any kind of procedural or policy support you could provide so that all employers are strictly following those guidelines to support people like people like us?
No, well, so, look, thanks for the question. I think so. There probably is some there already that's been set up. So I'm going to reference Lynn Romeo, who is now she is back and is being the chief social worker at Department of Health now as well. Lynn has done a lot of work in setting up various competency frameworks and expectations. So we've got knowledge skill statements, we've got competency frameworks for learning disability and mental health across adults. There's an older people's competency framework, and they're very clear sets of guidance around knowledge, what local authorities should be doing to enable people to have the skills and the understanding of being a social worker, like as you set out. And it is up for local authorities to ensure they apply those competency frameworks. I'm very much talking from an adult perspective here, so I haven't got as much knowledge on the children's side, but there are similar competency frameworks set out for children and families work. So for me, I think probably the opportunity is there. How well it's being delivered at local authorities will depend on each one. And again, I would urge you actually to talk to your principal social workers. So you will all have a principal social worker in adults in your authority, because the Care Act guidance sets that out as a requirement, and the principal social worker should be setting up these kind of reflective practice groups, clear learning and development opportunities for people so they can be the very best social workers they can, and in line with the competency frameworks and the knowledge skill statements that the chief social workers offices have set out across the country. And I know Social Work England as well, I know you're having a talk with them, they're very keen on setting out the quality of competency for practitioners as well, and how that works, and how things like KSSs in the future, or competency frameworks, or the PCF, the professional capabilities framework that we have, are applied at a local authority level. So what I would suggest is, I think it's probably there. It sounds like it may not be working everywhere, but I would go to your principal social workers in the first instance and ask them where the gaps are, and get them to work with you to fill those gaps, and ask what is the local authority doing to enable people to be the very best they can be from the skills and knowledge they have as social workers.
I don't know if you wanted me to come in now, because I know it's a question to both of us, but if I kind of park it and I will come back to some of that, or I can, I don't know, because I don't want to mess up your timings.
No, that's fine, Vicky. You can answer that questions when in your session.
Remind me if I don't come into it, because I do have things to say about that. So yeah, yes. If I don't remember, then remind.
Yeah, sure, we'll do.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Biju, will you move forward now?
Thank you. Sibi, I think you're on mute.
Yes, can we go for the next session? The time, around 11 o'clock, yeah.
So thank you, Sibi, and thank you, Sheena, for coordinating this. Mark, special thanks to you. Like you rightly mentioned, no matter what people say or think, we will always be there to support the vulnerable people. May I now request Mr. Martin Charco, Executive Member, to introduce our next guest, Ms. Victoria Hart, Regional Engagement Lead, Social Work England.
Thank you, Binu. I'm very pleased to introduce Victoria Hart. Victoria is Social Work England Regional Engagement Lead for London. Victoria has been a social worker for 20 years. She has worked across London in a variety of adult services, including local authority services for older adults and mental health services in a specialist community older adults mental health service, and as an advanced practitioner in NHS forensic mental health services. Victoria has practiced as an approved mental health professional and as a best interest assessor. Victoria also worked within regulation at the Care Quality Commission as an inspector in the mental health learning disabilities and substance misuse team covering the London region, which helped her gain a broader understanding of regulation within the health and social care sector. Even if there are more things to go, I think I will stop it here, giving time for Victoria to start on. Thank you.
Helps if I unmute. So I've put a couple of links in and I am going to refer to those points as I talk, but once I'm sharing my screen, I won't be able to get into the chat. So I wanted to share those in advance. Let me just, am I able to share my screen? I think, I'm not sure that, oh yes.
Yeah, you should.
Sorry, bear with me for a moment. Hopefully you can see what I am sharing. Am I right? Are you able to see my screen? Okay. All right. So just to say, I know you've had a little bit of an introduction to me. I mean, first I want to say what an incredible privilege it is for me to be here. I'm so, I just, it feels really enthused and I'm just really excited to be able to share this occasion with you. I've got my email address up on the front slide, so please do. I'm really happy for people to contact me directly if there are any questions or anything that comes up that I don't cover, or there are any specific questions about Social Work England or what we do. I'm really happy, and I'm happy for that email address to be shared out through everyone. I am the regional engagement lead for London. I'm a registered social worker. There are regional engagement leads, as I'm sure you can understand, for each of the regions, but I'm happy to channel those conversations. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about is I'm going to give some updates in Social Work England, and one of those links that I shared is I've changed my presentation, and I'm really sorry, Thomas, a little bit. I haven't changed the slides, but for a bit this morning, because one of the links I shared about the anti-racism report and survey that actually was just published yesterday. So I wanted to kind of add a little bit of that. There's a lot of slides, probably not going to get through them all, but you will have access to them afterwards, and hopefully there'll be useful information on them and links on them that you can take away with you. So as I say, going to give a few updates, going to talk about some of the new requirements for Social Work England, but I do want to talk about some of the work that we've been doing around equality, diversity and inclusion, both internally, but also reflecting a little bit on the report, which I've just shared into the chat. Talk a little bit about standards, and I'm going to try really hard to keep to time as well. But before anything else, and we're here to celebrate World Social Work Day and the theme of co-building a new eco-social world, leaving no one behind, as has already been mentioned today. And I think it is really important to acknowledge where we are at the moment with into our second year of COVID in a Europe where there is a war currently, but there are lots of other wars going on as well. Lots of concerns coming through people who are asylum seekers and refugees, and what we are doing in this country to support. I probably should stay off some of the politics because I think we're being recorded, but leaving no one behind for me is really pertinent today. It's always pertinent for us as social workers. And in terms of that theme of co-building a new eco-social world, I have to say, to be honest, I struggled a bit of understanding it. Maybe that says more about me than anyone else. But I did have spent some time this week considering it And there is a conference coming up, actually. I think it's in July this year, which has this name, Co-Building a New Eco-Social World, from the International Federation of Social Work, which they're going to be talking a lot more about this. But for me, it's about where do we go forward with social work so that we are creating sustainable social work. Now, you know, the eco side obviously is quite, is leaning towards, you know, how we're creating sustainable social work in terms of the planet. But I think it's, for me, it's more than that. It's how we're creating a social work that is a more inclusive social work, both in terms of how the social work leadership looks compared to the social work, but also in terms of working with people that we are supporting in social work. So just kind of thinking about that and where we sit, where I sit, I'm at Social Work England now. As I say, I'm regional engagement lead. I am fairly new to the job, just a little heads up in case I can't answer any questions. I've been in this role for about 6 months and coming from a direct practice role. So, you know, for me, it's kind of this different perspective on social work and what we can do in Social Work England. So as I say, I'm not going to necessarily, I don't want to read through all the slides. I want it, what I talk about, to come to life a little bit. But in terms of where we are in Social Work England, and I am really aware that this is a UK forum, so real apologies to the Welsh, Scottish and Northern Irish members, because I am dwelling a little bit on England for the moment. But Social Work England is, I'm sure you know, is the social work regulator, but it is the third social work regulator that there has been for England. We have not had a very happy experience of regulation in England, and that's my judgment as a social worker who's been in practice over the last 20 years. Social regulation came into social work as a protected title, as a regulated profession with the 2000 Care Standards Act. We had the GSCC, which ran from around 2003 to 2012. We then, as social workers in England, switched to the HCPC. And Social Work England was established in 2019, when it was felt both from the sector leaders, but also from the government, that multi-professional regulation wasn't working for social work. Social work needed something that was specific to social work. So as well as setting professional standards for social work, we're maintaining a register of who can practice. We handle those fitness to practice concerns, but also set education and training standards for social work and inspect education providers, as well as approving some of the post-qualifying courses for AMPs. We've talked about AMPs a few times, approved mental health professionals, and best interest assessors, or soon to be approved mental capacity professionals. And I have to say, if those are areas that you're interested in, we will very, very shortly, very imminently, be announcing consultation on some of those AMP and BIA/AMCP training standards. So do keep an eye out. I will keep Thomas informed so that we can share that information if that's something that you want. And in terms of the standards, so we've come down to these 6 standards. It's fewer than there were with HCPC, but they are social work specific, and they were developed in consultation with the profession. And I know there has been criticism within the profession about there not being specific standards around anti-racism, but these do fall under some of these subsections of these standards. So, for example, in Standard 1, there is the need 1.5 to recognise differences across diverse communities and challenging the impact of disadvantage and discrimination on people, their families and communities. And another one of the subsections of Standard 1 is around, as social workers, needing to promote social justice and helping to confront and resolve issues of inequality and inclusion. So each of these standards will have a number of subsections. I will talk about the CPD a little bit later on, just because I'm not going to go into it in detail, but there have been some changes and I just wanted to keep you up to date. But again, what I'm not able to cover, it'll be on the slides. But I think in terms of getting familiar with the professional standards, because we are quite a new regulator, I think it is quite useful to look at some of those subsections and get a feel of where those standards fit in terms of our practice. At Social Work England, one of the things that we've tried to do over the last couple of years is work with what we call our National Advisory Forum. And this National Advisory Forum is really a way for us to put co-production at the heart of what we're doing within the organisation. So this forum is made up of practicing social workers, who are our service users, in effect, social work students, and people with lived experience of social work, as well as social work academics and some partner agencies. If any of you saw any of the events and the planning over the last week that we had in Social Work England for what we call our Social Work Week, you will likely have come across, knowingly or not, some of the members of our National Advisory Forum who are very much involved in how we put that programme together. I think with co-production, where I am and where I know the organisation, it's something the organisation takes very seriously and is really working on. And I know for me, it's something I know that I can always do better at. And so it's really about how we work with the profession, but also those who are supported by the profession to guide what we're doing within Social Work England. This is the point at which I'm going to veer from the presentation a bit. So this slide, just while it's on the screen, so you know what I'm going to talk about next, is about, we've developed an equality, diversity and inclusion plan, and this is really about how we work within Social Work England. But before I want to go on to that, I want to come to the report that I linked in the chat. So this is a report, anti-racism report, and it was published yesterday, so forgive me for my notes. And it was a collaboration between Social Work England, the What Works for Children organisation, and the PSW network. And this was a survey. This is the initial outcomes of a survey that took place last summer, so between July and August 2021, of around 2,000 social workers. Every registered social worker in England received a copy of the survey. So, you know, it's obviously about the 2,000 was the percent that responded, and it was about experiences of racism at work. There were also, and I don't know if any of you might have been involved in them, but we also ran focus groups in January this year. So everyone who responded to the survey had a follow-up email, would you like to join a focus group? And then we set those focus groups up. Now, because the times were tight, there wasn't a lot of options about the times of focus groups. So I know that there would have been a lot of people who would have wanted to go to those focus groups who might not have been able to because of the times and when they came out. But we did manage to run these focus groups. So some of the outcomes are in that report. And I would, I mean, nobody will be surprised by the outcome, which report, you know, lack of career progression for social workers from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds. There was a report that 9% of social workers said that they had directly experienced racism at work, and 1 in 10 had considered leaving the profession because of racism they had experienced at work. And some of the themes that came out, and do look through that information because I've just rushed over those things very, very briefly. But some of the things that the report looks at in terms of, and the themes that were pulled out of the focus groups as well, were about what the responsibilities were of the employing organisations for tackling racism. And I know Mark's obviously spoken about local authorities, the RES, but I think for us at Social Work England, we're not just looking at social workers that are employed in the local authority. So we're looking much broader at social workers who work in the third sector, at independent social workers. And while some of those issues can be tackled through the PSW network, there are 50% of the social workers on the register do not work in statutory services. So it's reaching out to how those people as well, not just within the local authority, but in other areas can be supported around this as well. And one of those themes, as you'll see in the report, is about the role of Social Work England. You know, does there need to be a specific standard around racism and tackling anti-racism? That was one of the themes that came up. And the other area, the other theme that was tackled was around social work education. And again, we've talked about social work in practice, but what is the impact of racism within social work education, within social workers who are training, within practice education, within pass marks for social workers who are from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds? So those were some of the themes. We don't have the answers, but what we are resolving to do next, what the next steps are. And there is a commitment across these organisations, across the PSW network, across Social Work England, to do this. And one of the areas that came out was about focusing on racism within the workplace, but not only racism from colleagues and managers, but also racism from people who use social work services, because that came up as a theme. Strengthening, and again, this relates to one of the questions that was asked, I think, earlier, about strengthening anti-racism within organisations, and how that's managed, and scrutinising career progression. So getting better data around what organisations look like, what our profession looks like. If you go into if you are registered with Social Work England and you go into your account, you'll see that there is a section next to the CPD part. I'm kind of on the form in your folder about equality and diversity monitoring, and we are really asking if people can fill that in. It is not compulsory, nothing to do with your registration or not, but we really want to get better data about what the social work workforce looks like, and so that we can look at some of those issues around the higher proportions that we think that there probably are regarding fitness to practice referrals. But having that data will be able to help us work much better, and also to set our targets about how we will know that we are meeting some of those targets. So one of the targets, and this is proposed in the report that I shared, was around this this outcome that 1 in 10 social workers had considered leaving the profession because of racism. So how do we reduce that? Could that be a target if that number comes right down? And the other kind of more concrete step that we want to take, we are going to be taking within Social Work England, is continuing having these forums of discussion within the social work leadership, not just within the statutory sector, but within other employing organisations within social work, about what action we can take. So we're really hoping that there will be action coming from that. This is a report that doesn't lead to action, you know, as Mark referred to, with all those reports around abuse within learning disabilities and mental health sectors. You know, the action, we can all take these reports, but what do we do next? And I think that there is a resolve in social working to take these things forward. So I've taken a bit more time on that, so I am going to just want to focus. So this is our equality, diversity and inclusion action plan within Social Work England. And one of those areas is, I mean, I've talked a bit about wanting that better diversity data. I probably should have waited for this slide, because that was one of the things that we're really trying to do. There wasn't this data with HCPC, so we have had to kind of create it from scratch in a way, and really want to be able to understand what people's experiences are of regulation, and how that might be linked to being from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds. And using our education and training standards, we've changed the education and training standards over the last year, but using those and the inspections of education providers to push these equality, diversity and inclusion principles onto these courses. We have commissioned some research around people's experiences of the fitness to practice processes. And obviously one of those areas that we will be exploring is are there differences on the basis of people who come from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds. This objective is more about Social Work England internally and the recognised need for Social Work England to have a more diverse workforce and build into our organisation what we would like to see modelled in other organisations. Obviously, we wouldn't be subject to the res, but we should be doing the things that we expect of the sector ourselves. And there was a recent targeted recruitment campaign for partners, particularly asking for people from Black and minority ethnic backgrounds to apply for those partner roles. So that was really within the Fitness to Practice Directorate. So we are really aware of what we need to do as an organisation. And the final one is about the way that we communicate and making sure that we take account of different communication needs, of linking in with different networks, of listening to different experiences, both of social workers and people who use social work services. So that's a little bit about our equality and diversity plan. Now I'm going to zip through some of the other slides. This is just, I mean, I've got a link in this, so if you get the slides, and I can put the link into the chat afterwards. Social Work in England report, emerging themes. This was published in January this year, and it's just some of the data that came through, and I think some of it's interesting. About 100,000 social workers in England, just to show that I didn't really. I'm sure I got my failings here, but I should have added, after British, the most common nationalities are Zimbabwean, Irish, and actually next is Indian. So if I'd have thought a bit, I would have added Indian for this session onto the list. But yeah, I mean, so those are the largest proportions of non-British social workers. And the largest number of social workers are registered in London. There's other information and data coming from that report, but I won't dwell on it too much, because I do just want to touch on CPD requirements which have changed for this year. So this might be a bit drier, but I think it is something that comes up quite a lot in questions that we're being asked. So that this year, to 2021 to 2022, there have been a few changes, CPD requirements. Well, two changes really. One is that there are 2 pieces of CPD that need to be registered, and one of which should include a peer reflection. These were developed after consultation last year, and in terms of the registration cycle is the same, so it's 1st of December to 30th of November. What we're really asking people is to please don't leave it till the last minute. I'm going to skip over some of the slides about CPD, but you will be able to look at them when they're sent out. But just to say that we just really want to emphasize that CPD is really broad, and anything that you learn from can be CPD. I linked to the podcasts. There's a little bit of self-promotion. Well, it's not self-promotion because it's not me personally, but our team, my regional engagement team, did publish those podcasts, one which aligns to each of the professional standards over the last year. I think they're really good for CPD purposes. But listening to podcasts, that's really, valid. CPD, what did you learn from it? Reading an article. I mean, the session today could easily be CPD when one reflects on what you've learned from it. So we really want to emphasize that there's not one way that CPD looks. Again, different parts of the CPD standard. All I'll say here is that you don't need to cover all of these pieces, all of these sections of the CPD standard over the year. 4.6 and 4.7 are the ones that will always need to be covered, but all the other ones, it depends on what the CPD you've done is. 4.7 you can almost put to one side because it's record your CPD. So just by recording your CPD, you are doing 4.7. But 4.6 is the one really, really to try and focus on, which is about reflecting. There needs to be a reflective element to what you're writing about. What have you learned from whatever that CPD was? If it's about the session today, what have you learned from it? How will it impact your practice? If it's about the podcast, how have you learned from it? How is it linked to your work? So as I say, I will send the slides out. There is a new form. I won't go through that now because we don't have time, but just to say that it's not, there isn't the structured and unstructured form anymore. It is just one. I think, probably a bit biased, it is a bit easier to work through than having the options. It gives you word count. It gives you guidance around word counts, and there are some elements that will come up as red if you don't fill them in, like the date. You have to get the date right. But the one area, just really quickly, I just wanted to touch on was the peer reflection, which is new. So what the peer reflection is, and you need to do this for a minimum of one of the pieces that you submit, is about a discussion about your CPD with a peer. Now, the peer doesn't have to be another registered social worker. It can be another professional. So, for example, I used to work in a mental health multidisciplinary team. I worked with nurse, with an OT, with a doctor. I could discuss my CPD as a peer reflection with any of those people in the team, or with a group. It can be a group discussion as well. It doesn't need to be a one-to-one. If you have peer reflection sessions at work, or informal peer reflection sessions like these groups, those can count as those peer reflections. And what you're doing is writing down, there is a section for it, what you've learned from that reflection. Has that discussion helped you think of things in a different way? I've put the link on the slide to the guidance on the Social Work England site. So, as I say, whizzing through this, but just wanted to kind of capture that. And coming back to the role of managers and employers, in that this is for local government associations, so this is mostly for local authorities, but the local authorities, a lot of local authorities will sign up to these LJA standards, which is about allowing employees time to have their CPD discussed. I'm going to skip over the CPD review, but when you get the slides, do have a look at this, because there's some notes in there that might be useful. And this is what we've got going on. So I've shared the podcast. The Social Work in England report 2 was what I was talking about. It's the Social Work in England emerging themes. So if you're interested in some of the data that's coming out, and there isn't the data there about ethnicity, but about other areas, there is some quite interesting data about education, about what social work looks like, about some of the areas that have come up in fitness to practice. I would recommend signing up to the Social Work Now newsletter. Also, do get in touch with me, as I say, if there's anything, any queries that are specific. I'm really happy to respond. These are some of the things to remember about your registration, about the deadlines to renew. But I've also included in the slides some of the resources about, that might be helpful going forward. So I know that there's time for questions. I'm going to stop sharing so you can see where I am. I don't know how I am doing for time, but I hope there's time for questions.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you so much. I would like to request Mr. Roxy, our resource coordinator, to facilitate the Q&A session.
Thank you, Binu, and thank you very much, Vicky. That was a wonderful session. We really enjoyed it, and I personally wasn't aware of the changes that was happening, the CPD requirement to maintain our registration. That was really quite informative and useful for all of us. So we would like to welcome questions from our members. Members, feel free. You can raise your hand and you can ask questions to Vicky.
Hello, Victoria. Can you hear me?
I can.
Victoria, thank you very much for the presentation, because I'm really pleased when I heard about the peer reflection. I have no idea what hell is this, but thank you very much for the clear explanation, because our forum, we can use this peer reflection. This is an amazing news. Thank you very much for that. Also, I would like to ask one question for you, and I need a little bit support here. You know, there is a national advisory forum you mentioned. You please consider, can you include social work forum in the national advisory forum so that we can send one representatives? So that is beneficial for both of us. It is a win-win policy. You please consider that. The third thing I would like to ask, because in my professional life, I started as a social worker, but one of the area I really worried about, the people use the service so many times, their behavior was quite depressing for me. I don't want to mention anything. Sometimes people ask why you came here. You came to take the advantage of our benefits. Why can't you go there? So some things are, because they are very vulnerable. I can they got some problem, but I am asking, is anything as a social work England you can direct on this matter to our local authorities? So just I am asking. Thank you.
Okay, so just in terms, I'll start with that last point because I think that is really important, and I think that's something that we as a profession need to have a much better argument about. And while I know it's not necessarily obvious in the way I look, I have experienced that from people who use, you know, you wouldn't necessarily know what my ethnicity is, let me put it that way, but let me just say I have personal experience of having that experience from people who use services in terms of the way that they've spoken to me. And I think that's what came out of the report that I shared really strongly, is that it is not just about it is not just about other professionals and managers, although that is obviously really important. We should not have to, it is a difficult area to navigate in terms of abuse on the basis of our ethnicities from people who use services. I think it is something that we are focused on. I don't have an answer yet, except to say it is very much a big focus of what came out of the survey that we did, of how we can ensure that this is taken into account within people's experiences, because it is something that only some social workers will experience. And it's maybe a part of learning from the NHS as well, where there are much clearer standards around abuse from staff. Now, we do have the responsibility to deliver services, but one of the questions for employers is how do they protect their staff as well? So it's not really an answer for you, I'm afraid, except to say it is on the radar. Just to say, in terms of the National Advisory Forum, it doesn't, it's kind of, it has a set number of members and it has cycles in which they recruit. But what I will, I mean, I'm really pleased. One of the reasons I feel so glad to be here today is to just make sure that we are engaging with more networks and can make sure that we feed in. So I will make a commitment here to make sure that I liaise with Thomas, if it's Tom. I mean, I know Thomas has been my link so far, but in some ways, you know, with the organisation about areas where your group can contribute. So, for example, when we do have consultations coming up, if that helps.
Yeah.
Was there another question that I missed? I think there were 3 parts.
Yeah, you covered everything. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyway, Victoria, the thing is that you already answered one, because the NHS has a clear guidance for abuse from the patients, because they can ask them to leave. One of my clients, the same client created problem in the GP surgery. GP surgery stopped him, and cancel his registration and all these things. But social services has not clear guidance what we got NHS. You mentioned that point. Thank you very much for that. Take care. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Victoria, I have one question. I just noticed that we are nearly 100,000 social workers registered at the moment, 99. And out of which the next after the British social workers, the Zimbabwean is 1,544 and Irish is 1,057. Do you have any figures for Indians?
I do have figures for Indian because I looked this morning. Sorry, I'm laughing because I specifically, the number for Indian is 441.
Oh, that's brilliant. Wow. So we are actually only in this forum. We have only 133 social workers in this forum. So we have to, that means it's extra job for us to find them, bring them together under one umbrella of social workers.
And that's, I mean, just to say, sorry, I didn't mean to, but that will be, there may well be people, you know this better than me, there will be people who are British nationals who are Indian as well. So this would, it wouldn't necessarily count dual nationals or
you're right, because we are only social workers from Kerala, although there are a lot of social workers from India, so that's pretty right.
But you've got a really good, it's a really good group for us to engage with, because you can see from those numbers. But
I have a question from India, one of the social worker who is actually waiting for all registration. What he sent me 2 questions is, one is what he said is that if we are ready with all documents uploaded for Social Work England, it takes 3 months for registration. Actually, he is shortlisted, is waiting for the registration process to complete. To register, he needs to get the IELTS, which is also certain score. I don't know. What he said to me, if he has done his degrees, actually he's a highly qualified social worker who has done his BSW, MSW, MPhil in psychiatric social work, and then his PhD. And still, they are asking for IELTS. So if he's done all these degrees in English, obviously, can we do anything in terms of, waiving it off this IELTS for social workers? Can Social Work England do something? Because I understand that it used to be 111,000 social workers in 2010, now which has gone down 11,000, whereas our population has actually gone up in 8 millions. It used to be 60 million when we came around quite a few years ago, and now it's 68 million is the population. So there's a big shortage of social workers and an increase in and most of this 8 million population, as far as I understand, they are from ethnic minorities, either migrating from Africa, Asia. So obviously a lot of social workers from ethnic minority background is actually very urgently required.
Yeah, and what I would say is I will take that back to the organisation. I don't have an answer now. I am really happy for whoever it is or through the organisation to contact me directly via my email, and I will follow. I will feed this back.
Thank you very much.
To the organisation, to the registration.
Thank you very much.
But as I say, if people do want to contact me directly, please do, about issues like that.
He was asking, is there anybody if he can give the contact number or email for them to directly liaise with?
I'm going to put my email in the chat. We're quite
Thank you very much.
What I would say is we're quite a small organisation, so it will be quite easy for me to find the people to talk to.
Yes.
But it kind of saves you going through the information at, coming directly to me, and I will pick that up if you do get back to me or have any.
Thank you very much, Vicky. Yeah. Any more questions? Roxy, I pass it on to you.
I think Thomas Joseph has raised his hand.
I'm just asking a bit of a clarification, Vicky, just for the benefit of everybody, actually. One is regarding the peer reflection. Of course, we have clarified how it works. But when we record it on the system, is it enough that we just make a note that this has been peer reflected with someone, or do that person who we did the peer reflection, do they need to provide any evidence of the reflection? That's one question. And the second one is, I know 2 pieces of reflection we need to write, 2 pieces of evidence. Is there any time requirement for that. I mean, not the time of when it's needs to be recorded, but I'm saying is like it has to be like a 1 day's work or 2 days work training that you could be undergoing. Just to clarification.
Okay. I mean, there's one thing I'll say. I can answer both those questions quickly, but just before that, if it would help for me to come back to a session and talk specifically and take conversations about CPD in all ways on a longer occasion, I am really, really happy to do that. Because I imagine there's lots of conversations. I'm really happy to come and spend a lot more longer talking about that. In terms of the peer reflection, it is just writing, I reflected with, and don't write the name, I reflected with within my group of, within a peer group of 4 social workers and this. So nobody needs to verify it in the sense, if that's what you mean. So the section that you're writing in, you're just reflecting on that reflection. Nobody is going to check who those peers were. You don't write down the names of those peers. You just say, I discussed this with my manager who's a social worker, and this is what, this is the outcome of our discussion that made me think about how to work in this way, or, so yeah, you're not doing that. And is that clear? Is that okay? Yeah. In terms of the time of your TPD, there is no time. It could be half an hour. It could be a session. It could be a session like this. It could be a book that the podcasts, which are around 40 minutes. So there is no, and that's one of the differences, I think, from some of the previous ways that CPD has been done, where it's been by hours. There's no requirement on hours for Social Work England, because the idea is it's about the reflection, not the actual substance. And it could be something that you read in 5 minutes, but what you read affects you so deeply and makes you think that the learning is as important as a 2-day course.
Thank you.
I also understand that there is no more structured and unstructured form. Is that correct?
That is correct. There is one form now. So when you go in, it's a bit of a mix between the two.
Okay.
But yeah, there's only one form now. Hopefully easier. But as I say, very happy for people to come back with email questions. So yeah.
Do you have any social workers they don't complete in time, and what happens to those situations?
Yes, we always have social workers that don't complete in time, and they are removed from the register.
And then what do they do later?
They then have to apply. Usually it's a mistake. I mean, I have to say, sometimes it's intentional. If somebody's coming up for retirement and they just don't renew.
Right.
Often it's a mistake. They've not pressed the right buttons. Their computer was down. They got sick during the last week before they had to submit, and they'd left it till the last minute, which is why we say, please, please, please don't. And what they have to do is inform their managers, because they can't work as social workers while they're not on the register. And then they have to apply for restoration, which it takes about 10 days and it's about £140. And then they get back onto the register. But it is a hassle that you do not need. And it really, really is. It causes so much stress and distress every year. Because but you do get back on the register, but you have to pay an extra £140.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Hi, Vicky. I have a question regarding CPD.
Yeah.
As you have to submit CPDs now, I just wanted to know, is there any time frame between submitting these 2 CPDs? Like, can we submit it within a month's time?
You can
Both these CPDs, or there should be some time frame?
You can submit them both on the same day if you really want to. No, there's no limit. But again, what we'd say is, please don't, really do try not to leave it until November, because we know, because we have the data, that about 80,000 social workers submitted their CPD and renewals in the last week of November. We are a profession that likes leaving things till the last minute, but on both of the last years, the computers, the IT systems did struggle a bit, And this year, because there's 2 pieces, it is going to take you a bit longer. You're not going to be able to do it in the last week. So no, there's no limit, but please try and get a bit done in advance. It makes it much easier for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
If I can ask one more question, if I may.
Please go ahead, Gigi.
Yeah, I was very interested about, again, following upon the equality, diversity, and the I was very impressed with the Vicky. You have included that slide and taking and that sharing that information about the progression and the plan proposal to address racism in social work England. And I think as a forum, we collaborate with BASWA as well. We also have linked with the Brunel University. We have done our members take part in the social workers recruitment, student social workers recruitment panel assist in terms of selecting candidates. And also we have involved in the research of international social workers and the impact of international social workers, and we have contributed that. And I think there would be more social workers, aspiring social workers will be keen to come to join, and obviously and our forum is supporting many of those social workers as well to get registered with the Social Work England. And Sibi has raised the point about the requirement about the IELTS, etc. But I think it would be a very good opportunity, our collaborative work, because obviously we have so the social workers from South India came from last 20 years or so, and we have working across different sectors within the social work sector. I am specializing in children, and we have moved from different managerial roles as well, and it would be good to have that interactive and communicative work with you, so that we can contribute as well. And I think it would be a good opportunity involving International Advisory Forum as well. And you are taking and it is good to see that there is guidelines for the employers to address the racism, equality, and those issues as well. So I think, and I'm glad that there is that engagement and work is going to be taking place. And it is sort of a comment, it's not a question, but obviously one.
I mean, all I'll say is, I know it's not a question, but I feel really invigorated by this, and I feel really hopeful that we can work a lot more together. And it's really important for me personally, that we as an organization reach out to your expertise as a group and your needs as a group, and you have this forum here that we can hopefully work together to link in with and make our understanding of the needs of social workers who come from overseas, also social workers from minority ethnic backgrounds, that we can do better for this group. And I think that is about working together. So yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, this is again, it's a replication. I do remember the initial discussion when we formed in 2014, but the discussion we have taken place is on before, and I have been sharing. I had the privilege to work with many international social workers because I had worked in services, closer to London, so I started my career in residential, worked in Slough, places in Reading, London boroughs, I worked in EDT, emergency duty services, etc. And I have worked across social workers around the globe, from New Zealand, Australians, German social workers, Caribbean social workers, Zimbabwean social workers, etc. And I was sharing this, and obviously the collaboration and the knowledge sharing and the problems ethnic and minority social workers all face is one and the same, so the experience of induction, the lack of career progressions, and obviously, so I'm glad that there is that, the questionnaire completed, and obviously there is that understanding, and you will be doing that, and that engagement is going to be vital in terms of, and we would like to have that collaborative work.
The other thing, just really, I know we're really short of time, so I just wanted to add, because I didn't talk to the question that was asked after the last section, but in terms of groups, one of the things we are looking to do, it's not about what the PSW are doing, but within Social Work England is about looking at how we might create some peer networks on a regional level. This isn't about people from Black minority ethnic backgrounds. It's not about particular groups of social workers. It's about all social workers. For example, for me, social workers in London. Because what we're trying to do is think about how we reach out to social workers that aren't in local authorities as well. So there are sometimes these networks that exist within large employers, but that's kind of a work in progress, and any information I will again feed through to the network as these may emerge. But thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vicky.
Thanks.
Sorry, you're saying something.
No, just saying thank you. I'm just
Thank you.
you know, really privileged to be here with you.
Yeah, we all are as well. I mean, to hear from you, that's quite inspirational, and glad to hear that you will be considering and you'll be taking this to appropriate platform, because we'll be quite happy to associate with Social Work England, because we can contribute a lot and we can learn and get inspired from your organization as well. So looking forward to such partnership. So we are just running over a few minutes late now. So passing over to you, Bina. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vicky, for sharing a lot of valuable information regarding equality, diversity, and inclusion plan for Social Work England, and about CPD, clearly clarifying what peer reflection means from the registration point of view. Thank you very much. I would like to call upon Ms. Sheena Luxon to introduce our next guest, Professor Gandhi Das, President of Network of Social Work Forums, India.
Thank you, Binu. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor for me to welcome Professor Gandhi Das to our forum to lead his speech. Professor Gandhi worked as a professor of social work at Bangalore University and Central University of Jammu. He's teaching postgraduate students in social work and guiding students for the doctoral programs. He has served as a chairman of the department 3 times. He has done various support and guidance for the PhD students and carried out more than 6 research projects for corporate NGOs and also for the government. He has served as nominated member by the Ministry of Appointment to Academic Council of National Institute of Public Cooperation and Child Development, Government of India. He also served as a member of various boards in more than 12 universities. Professor Gandhi appointed as a UGC expert for sanctioned projects of various universities, and most importantly, he was appointed as a member of the Karnataka State Disaster Management Authority, Government of Karnataka, back in 2009 and 2010. Professor Gandhi is well often invited for special lectures, speaker across the state for the educational institution, training institute, NGOs, and international non-governmental organization workshops and seminars, etc. He has been a visiting lecturer to different universities in different countries. Currently, he's the president of Indian Network of the Professional Social Work Association, and he got a great contribution to adding the Indian social work setting to the IFW, which is the International Federation of Social Work. Let me welcome Professor Gandhi to give his speech. Thank you. Over to you, Professor.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it is good afternoon there now. We are good evening here. And thanks for your association inviting me, and also Thomas Joseph, who has been pursuing my presence here on this day. It's a very small, I think there is a slide I was sent, if you can put it. I don't know who is having that. Anyone? Secretary?
Can you put the slides on?
Yes. I'll just say just a few things before the slide comes in. And war and pandemic creates a new social order. And that's what history tells us. And we're just coming out of one pandemic. It showed that no one is escapable. And one of the important things I found across the world, when almost all European countries, including India, they were abducting the welfare state concept widely. They are disowning and moving towards high type of privatization, including health. In India, we almost wanted to privatize the healthcare system. This COVID has brought one more lesson to all the countries across the world. Public health, public community health, public involvement, and mobilizing people for global safety, national safety, and their own safety is very important. And this is the lesson that we all must remember. What we learn out of these very many episodes are how do we redesign, reframe any profession which are working with people, including in your own country. The words have changed quite a lot, but now we have to rediscover. We are not selling products. There is no user, there is no giver. We serve people with compassion. We serve people without any kind of hesitation. We serve people with love. And that's the difference. So social work has been always being different and be the difference. And with these few remarks, I thought Thomas wanted me to share how this network concept came in India. You know that all of you must be knowing that social work came sometime in 1930s. But as a group, we are organized only in 1961. And there are two Association of Schools of Social Work in India and Indian Association of Trained Social Workers. Both have become part of the history of the social work in this country between 1980s and 90s. For various reasons, I will not go. Therefore, for nearly 3 decades, there was absence of professional association across India. This was the kind of a sad story we went through. Please, next. But however, as you have seen, that the social workers across India never rested. They started organizing themselves into regional groups or professional groups in various places. I have listed some of them. One of them was, first one was Bombay Association of Trained Social Workers, the Indian Society of Professional Social Work, which was basically, it was started by NIMHAD, National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences department people, and Professional Social Workers Association, that is Chennai, Masway is in Maharashtra, then we have the Karnataka Association, and we have a NAPSI, which came 2005, which was a national level associations, and CAPS, the Kerala Association, came in 2012. There are a number of other associations now emerging across India, and they have been functioning independent of each other, and they have been functioning in their own way. And this was the scenario till 2012, the birth of the new century also, the social work institutional framework was absent. Excellent, sir. Therefore, what does that happen? We as individuals got linked up to various associations across the world. But India as a country could not be represented due to the simple reason that international bodies demanded one country, one association. Therefore, coming together to form as one association was a challenge, and no one was willing to step into that. I was part of reorganizing the schools of social work, thanks to Tata Institute, which started sometime in 2004 and 6. We organized number of seminars, physical seminars across the country by region-wise, south, east, north, west, northeast, etc. And we formed Association of Schools of Social Work in India. That is basically for institutional education, their social workers, social work institutions. We started that, we nominated people to take it forward, but unfortunately, even today, though the registration is done, they were not able to push forward. At that time, I also told at Bombay in our meeting that I would work to bring the social workers, because at that time I almost took the retirement from my job. So I said we will work on to bring that. So it took some time between 2013 to 14, and we debated, and country like India, we felt the best way is to have a federation rather than having a monolithic institutional framework. Why? Because India, as we know very well, that it is linguistic-based states, and within that state there are a lot of variations, shades. We should not have a single institution. Therefore, we thought best way is allow the existing social workers association to be on their own, but whether we could form a common platform to come together, since the cause of all of us are the same. Therefore, it took for me and some of our friends to work on this, to convince people, to motivate, to bring them into this kind of common platform. Therefore, people agreed because each one can retain their identity, but still they can be part of a common identity as a brand of social work, social workers, social work practitioners. Therefore, they felt this is much better because each one can have their own way, but we can interact together. Let us move to the next one. Therefore, 6 associations of social workers gathered in Bangalore and resolved to form a national body. In 2015, we registered as an India Network of Professional Social Workers Associations. It is a social workers association as members with the 6 associations coming together and forming a federation. And we immediately applied for the IFSW membership. And within a shortest time, India was polled maximum vote to become the member. And we thought we should not rest. So in 2016, we organized a conference in Bangalore with Japan social workers. And we visited China to bid the Asia Pacific Conference for the first time in India. And we won with a lot of competition. And India hosted the first Asia Pacific Conference in 2019, which was a great success for us because for the first time we were able to bring number of social workers across the countries and within India and Asia Pacific and even Europe. We had, next slide please. We had an overwhelming presence of 28 countries. And Japan alone represented nearly about 30 people came, followed by New Zealand, which came in bulk, and even Papua New Guinea, a small island nations. They all participated. Iran came, Germany came, England also, there were 1 or 2 people came, and Europeans came, even from states. So we had a very overwhelming response to our presence, and it was a great national get-together and South Asia get-together. And today, India represents as one of the vice presidents of the IFSW Asia Pacific region and the IFSW board. And we were able to achieve this by two things. One, we were cautious about two things: the purpose of this federation and vulnerability that we may face. So these are the guards, safety guards we kept it for us. Purpose is to build a national network. And we should be very cautious about the vulnerability that we may face as a national federation. So we believed in only one thing, that accommodate everybody's interests, uphold the weakest of the weakest, even in associations, and then promote them to have the strength. Therefore, every time we said one association will lead a workshop, all other associations will participate, so that each one started getting some kind of recognition across the country. And this was able to bring a very close network across India. Today, I should be proudly say, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, from Manipur to Rajasthan, social workers are heard, listened, and slightly getting organized. This is the kind of achievement we were able to bring with 3 decades of pathological situation that prevailed in India. Therefore, I'm not taking too much credit, but building an institution are very important, because building an institution looks at 2 important things. One is, how do we learn among others from each other? And secondly, how do we share our experiences without hurting anybody? Therefore, with this kind of approach helped us to hold on together. And for the last 2 years, we have organized more than 200 to 300 webinars. And INPSW, that is Indian Network, has come to stay in India slowly, but still we have a long way to go. Next slide, sir. No, one more is there, I think.
No, sir. There is only 7 slides.
No, can you go to the previous slide, if you don't mind? Yes. Next one, sir. Yeah, this one. Yes. No. Last but yes. Okay. So we have number of associations coming together now, and we have been invited across the globe, and our members participate from Philippines on the workshops in Philippines and Nepal and Australia. We keep organizing quite a lot of cross-country workshops. And today, India has come to stay to provide that there can be a leadership. But we have a lot of challenges in our education. We have a lot of challenges in our things. We formed a National Council for Social Work Education. The bill is pending with the government. We worked for 1 year. I'm a bit skeptical whether this government would approve, because they don't want a lot of professional associations across India, but we are pushing that. We are waiting. It's all in the Prime Minister's office, UGC office. The important thing is that today we have been recognized as very important partners in the Asian countries. The next Asia Pacific will come in Iran. Iran came to India and they welcomed us, and the next conference of IFS Asia Pacific will be in Iran next year, I think. And another one will be in Mexico. That is international conference. So India has been very actively getting involved. the important point is we are impressing to all the members, we don't entertain an individual membership. That will weaken the other association. Therefore, if you are a member of one association, you are a member of INPSW. Therefore, we avoided entertaining any membership directly as an individual. It is the association of associations, and thereby we thought we can hold it because there is a independent identities and there is a collective shared identities. And this is what I thought I'll share the message as a co-building together in India. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Professor Dos. I would like to call upon Mr. Sibi, our treasurer, and Ms. Sheena Luxon to facilitate the next Q&A session.
Thank you very much, Professor Gandhi. This is actually very inspiring and very informative session for all of us. We are actually privileged to have you today with us and talk about how the network of social work associations work across India brought together, and you actually led from the to unite everybody together. I have a couple of suggestions when I was just listening to you. Is there any way we can also consider, there's a lot of Indian social workers working abroad. Is there any organization or form some group that we can bring everybody together, because that will really mutually we can support, grow together, and also contribute to the budding social workers who are in India. And secondly, I was just thinking about whether the UGC we can influence or we can do something on UGC to include the, because I know a lot of social workers in Canada, Australia, and America are working more than the population, because UK only recently this trend of social workers coming to UK happened. But if we can bring together, because all of these social workers would require probably a sound training about how the syllabus in other countries, and possibly a glimpse of all these incorporated into our university syllabus, which will definitely help, especially people who wish to go abroad and work. That's a couple of my suggestions. And now I am opening this forum to everyone to ask any questions if you have.
Yeah, your suggestions has been already well taken, and we have already have a connectivity with Canada. Okay. Of course, Australia and New Zealand, we have enough of resource people. Okay. Even last month, this month, we scheduled, the New Zealand scheduled 2 sessions on how the social work is being practiced in Asian countries. So we had the Philippines presenting their picture, we have Indonesians presenting, we had Australians presenting, and I'm a frequent visitor to South Asia countries, very, very frequently. I go almost every year. So I have a very good network with Japan and everybody. We have done that, and we are we keep organizing Asian region people. We get to connect with European, but of course we have few in Canada. We have, we have social workers from South India.
Our UK Embassy Forum can open the door to Europe to India, I think.
Oh, no, I visited 3 times, and I've given a lecture in your Westminster itself. There was a group called Friends of India. One of the MPs was a good friend of mine, and organized there. You have a small room, conference room in the Westminster. Okay. I came to Oxford also. I went to quite a lot of places. I worked in 74, I think. I was in England. I'm a volunteer, across the world. VIA, I think in England, they're called VIA, Volunteers International.
Right.
So I was a part of the VIA. So I was in England for one month working across various places as a volunteer, and moved to Europe, and moved to New Zealand and moved to Australia. So I love to go to Pacific islands. So we are trying to pick up from Fiji, which came to India. So we are doing that. What we are doing is now, let me further Sibi's point. What we are doing is, suppose we are having, I know that in UK, because my own students have come there as a recruitment by the local municipalities and others. We can link some of you with the resources where medical social work in India, because we have wide range of difference between how you practice, just your previous speaker, he was telling, I know that very well. And how our standards can be improved. That can linkages, what we are doing is, we are trying to link resource people across associations like yours at the beginning. Once we get along properly between us, then we can have an institutional relationship.
Great.
Because jumping into institutional relationship for me is not a very healthy sign. It's like India signing MOU with so many countries and nothing comes through. So we will work, because through work we discover each other. Through work we know our weakness and strength. Through work we know where we can take a stand, where we should not take a stand. Therefore, I always tell, the wisdom is when to speak your mind, when to shut your mouth. So when we learn these techniques, but I will be very happy, Thomas was mentioning this, if we can have about 10 resource people and your expertise, when India, we are having number of regional seminars going on, we can just recommend one of you to link with them, because only thing we look at your UK time nowadays. So once that is done, for England, it is no problem at all, because by evening you can join us, your afternoon session. So what I would request you from your association, from your secretary or Thomas is there, give a list of people and their strength and area. We will see to it that your views are shared in one of the various online platforms. You discover your place and you see what you can do more, and then we can really collaborate. In 1 year time, I know where we can stand. In fact, we can even organize a joint program, online joint program for half a day to start with.
Great. That's a good.
So we can learn, because yours is very good in your medical social work and healthcare related to social work. And we need to bring a change in paradigm shift. As you listen to all your speakers previously, I always tell the goals of social work is universal. Okay. Human rights, equality. Practice is very different.
Yeah.
Somehow the assumptions are converted as our mission goal. That is a mistake social work has done. The assumption that equality, equal rights, inclusiveness, etc., are universal. The European history taught that. European philosophers taught that. But scale down and bring it to practice level. It's a huge gap. Therefore, we should be conscious, universal declaration, and how do we apply that in our practice in a small way. I will conclude with a small remark. There was India, we are all land of sages and saints. So one person went to a saint and asked, "Oh Guru, I don't know what is love. How do I understand love?" Because Jesus Christ, everybody talked about love. And the Guru answered, "Whatever you want to do for you, whatever you think good for you, just do it for somebody else. That's all love is. So social work also does the same thing. So we need to scale down the universal assumptions, I would say, and to come down to the reality. And in fact, with your UK, I meet a lot of your professors across many times. I keep questioning them about the nomenclature changed for social workers in England. And I said, the welfare state should not use those nomenclatures. A welfare state is a state from England taught us, womb to the tomb. That was a concept England taught. Sorry, the English concept of welfare state. But they've changed the nomenclature thanks to globalization, thanks to great globalizations. But we have to recapture our image properly, that we work with people with compassion and love and dedication, and the smile from the client is the greatest reward social workers will remember in their lifetime.
Thank you very much, sir. Do you have any more questions from anyone?
I just wanted to raise one question if I have time. Yeah, it's good, that sir, there is that platform. So one of the things when I was working in, when I was I trained from Maharashtra. I worked in Delhi and social work for 4 years, and before I moved here. One thing I noticed is the social workers is the collaboration and the network, so it was lacking, and also every state is practicing differently. And I had a I had closely worked with the Delhi social, and that's where there is more statutory social workers. And what I notice is also is that most of the social worker professionals are working in NGO charitable, setting. They have employment opportunities. So most of the social workers, I was resistant to work anywhere else, because I had the benefit of working with charitable organization UNICEF, so Save the Children Alliance, and even the Childline, because I was working for Butterflies.
Okay, I know.
There is lots of network on Childline, so that point of view, and obviously the lack in affecting and people migrating from India is because of the lack of pay in a charitable sector or NGO sector. And even though we are master degree holders, professional social workers, etc., and the pay compared to other professional network is lacking, so, and that's one of the reasons professionals are leaving professionals from India, and we need social workers to make the social changes required. And what I notice is very different states, as you mentioned in the beginning about the pandemic and the impact that on and the need for social welfare and partnership working within the professional network. And I think your association may influence, and collaboration may influence in terms of raising the standard of social workers, and so that there is a more collaborative working, and so there is more people coming into the profession to improve the uplifting of the vulnerable people in society.
I'll answer only just simply two things. At the moment in India, the quality and the quantity of social work is directly opposite. And you know that today we have more than 625 schools of social work today. And if you ask for quality, it is opposite. And that is exactly due to prioritization, because they advertise in various places. You can move to UK, you can move to Canada, study social work. This is advertisement all the most majority of the private colleges make. And this is the situation. And that's how we formed the council, but the government is still keeping it. We will work on it. But the point is, migration, yes, it should be. It's a global world, a global village. Yeah, migration is a part, and cultural learning must take place. I saw your first speaker speaking quite a lot and your questions. You know, in England, you have a race relation institute. I don't know whether still they are functioning effectively. One of the best institute which has done a good work on race relations. Quite a lot of studies. So you can ask them to study and reflect on the social workers and racial discrimination in UK. They are very good institute in England, and that way we can bring that. My second point is, whatever may be the color, people need to accept international movement of skilled people has come to stay. Each nation must accept this. Each nation must understand this. Everybody knows it. But the space they're trying to hold on, they can't hold on. That's my gut feeling. These countries which are holding on must, or in short time, in another 10 years will bust. They can't survive without the skilled manpower across the countries. That's my gut feeling. They may restrict, but they cannot survive without importing people, skilled people across. I chose to be in India, but I have 3 national passports, so that's different one. But that is not the point. I mean, the point I'm saying is, if globalization is accepted as a phenomenon, global skilled people also must be accepted. There is no globalization without the people. In globalization, products are not important, people are important. And that is where you and I stand together. That's it. And we have to put our elbows to make space for ourselves. That's the way I believe. Everywhere I go, I make space for myself. We have to make space. Nobody will give that. Nobody gives it. But we can make, provided we are different and we are the difference. That is my motto in my life. I am different, I'll be different anywhere, wherever I go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Das. So we're coming to the end of our program. Could I request any feedback from our participants? You could just raise your hand, or you could post your feedback on the chat.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Professor Das, for sharing your wisdom. And it's good to hear from someone who is in the top of the organization, who is trying to bring an umbrella organization for all other smaller organizations in our country. We still love our country because most of us studied back home. So it's always in our mind what we could contribute back to our country. At some point, I hope it will be a great beginning of partnership between our organization and the organization that you are representing. So I'm sure we'll be in touch with you and we can
give us a list.
Definitely,
yeah. And we'll invite. If you are coming to India, just tell us, so that if you are around free, we can always make an invitation for you.
Absolutely,
no problem.
So you're based in Bangalore, yeah?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you.
But Bangalore is a station, that's all. Many times I travel a lot, even at this age.
Okay, okay, great. Thank you very much, sir, for your beautiful explanation. Binu, please proceed. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I would like to call Mr. Biju Anthony, our secretary, to offer the vote of thanks.
A lot of vote of thanks already.
Yeah.
It's a general vote of thanks, sir.
Yeah. It's a general way of concluding the sessions. That's all. Just a formal things. So thank you very much, Binu, for inviting me. It's a great honor to be part of the great forum that we have got. Being secretary is an honor for me. So first of all, like all the special day of World Social Work Day, I take this opportunity to wish all the social workers out there, a very happy social work day. This is the day that we become citizens of a particular profession and we take pride in what we do. Yeah. So as the theme clearly says, it's a co-building a new eco-social world where no one is left behind. I don't want to use it as two different sentences that comes out from it. It's a one word, because when you try to build a co-building, so co-production is always in the heart of what we do. So when we're building a co-building a world, a social world, there won't be anybody left behind. So even the objective, the aims and objectives of the forum was the same, isn't it? Like we felt that our fellow social workers are struggling in certain areas of support, and we wanted to support them. So that's why we created. So we felt that fellow social workers shouldn't be left behind. So everything that we do, as Professor Dawes was mentioning before, because the love, the concern for other people, that makes us different. That makes our profession different. So we always enable people to live the way they want to live, to be part of their social world, be understanding and addressing their social systems and issues they face, and be sympathetic and empathetic. We being sympathetic with the condition and we empathizing with what the conditions are and supporting them. So everything should start from us to move on to a world where we bring changes. So that's why social work traveled from very humanitarian consideration to a professional body. So that's what we have to make. That's what we have to make the changes to. So we are an organization, we thrive for our members development in terms of getting them back to social work field, getting them to the career development. But we also work along with other organizations, networking, partnership working to improve quality of service, quality of the profession. So we are very happy to work with our roots, basically. Like I will say roots because we all qualified in India. I don't think there's anybody here who qualified as a social worker in the UK. We all qualified in India. We know the curriculum. We know the system that works there. So but we have got a wealth of experience of working in a different developed country. So that means we can cut short 20, 30 years of journey that India has to make to come to the level of social work in England. So if we could, we could intervene in between, that will cut short the 30 years of journey they have to make to come to the stage where UK-based social work is. So we are happy to work with in partnership with other organizations. We're happy to provide our expertise and resources as much as we can, and equally learning from you, because you are, like your organizations have wealth of knowledge in different fields and areas. So we have to learn from that as well. So first of all, and on behalf of all the people in this forum, I would like to thank all the people who, the keynote address, Mr. Mark Harvey from Chief Social Work England, Victoria Hart from Social Work England, and Professor Dawes from Network of Social Work in India, and all the executive committee for your wonderful support and to make this happen, especially to our PRO Thomas for inviting a lot of chief guests here, a lot of people who are very specialists in their areas of work, and also our members, even though we have got a large membership, sometimes the programs is very little represented in terms of our membership. But it's good to know that so many people are willing to come and join us today. So it's a good number. I appreciate because Saturday is not a very good day for most of people who live in England, because that's a time you get some time to spend time with your family. Like you've got a lot of commitments in terms of, but still you took time off out of that and came to join us. So I take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for the wonderful support you gave, and I'm looking forward to the continued support in the rest of the year, the programs that we are conducting. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Biju. You're nearly finished.
So are we concluding the section now, or is?
Can we finish it, Biju, now? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's officially ended now. People can never leave. Yeah.
So once again, thank you to all of you.
Thomas can say a few words, Thomas, before we are concluding the session. Please, Thomas.
No, yeah, I don't think there is a thing as such to say. So I think we did well, and I think we had a very good audience, and I hope people have benefit from it. And there was a lot of work going behind it. That's all I can say. In getting the resource persons.
Okay, once thank you very much.
It's a wonderful section. So thank you very much, everyone who joined today.
Thank you all. Wishing you all a happy social workers' day.
Continue to see you, and I would like to see you again in the next program, next meeting or next programs.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
For all your cooperation. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Can the executive committee members stay for a few minutes just to have a quick briefing?